Hey everyone, I'm Deb, and today it's time for me to do my October reading wrap-up part 1. This is everything I've read from the 1st of October until the 16th of October. And it's a little bit lighter than sometimes. Sometimes I'll read twice the amount of books, sometimes I'll read less. It's random as always. I read 4 full-length novels and 1 very short novel. I'm not really sure if you class it as a full-on novel or is it some sort of novella or a novelette. I'm not good on book standards, so if you know what format the 5th book is, let me know, because I don't. Anyway, first book is Jack of Eagles by James Blish. James Blish is an old classic science fiction author. He was writing in the same time as Sturgeon and Heinlein and many other well-known older science fiction authors, and he's one that I've been meaning to read for years now, and as is often the case, I just haven't got around to him for whatever reason, but now I've fixed that. This is a interesting little book. It is only small, it's only about 250 pages, so it's very small. The plot of it is very simple. It's one guy called Danny Caden. He thinks of himself as a normal guy. He works a fairly normal job, working for a sort of newspaper type place. I can't remember the exact job title. And he realises one day, or at least he starts to suspect, that he's developing psychic powers of various kinds. He seems to be picking up people's thoughts, and other powers develop over time. And this is both useful in some ways, but also extremely bad, because of course he doesn't know how to deal with it. But also other people start picking up on the fact that there's something odd with him, because he's seeming to know things before he should. So the government start getting involved in the FBI, but also other groups like criminal groups and other unusual groups. And the book is well written, really, really weird, but really, really fun. I can't say too much more about the plot without giving away major spoilers, but it does go in a really weird way, and it's just mad in the end. It's just talking about quite unusual concepts in an interesting way, which I've read about before, but frankly, reading about it in an older book is always fun, because the thought processes then were different from what they are now, due to obviously our science knowledge now. Of course, is more confirmed. We know a bit more in general now. Then it was a bit more experimental, and you can tell that basically from certain aspects of this book. I'd recommend this if you just want something quick, fun, and something a little bit different from the normal, and also a classic science fiction author as well. The second book was for Jenny's Gothic read along, and that is Jamaica In by Daphne de Maurier. This is my mum's book, by the way, in case you're wondering. This is one that I knew almost nothing about. The only thing I knew about it, due to what my mum has said over the years, is that this is to do with a woman who goes to a house in Cornwall, Devon, my mum couldn't remember, and she gets involved in smuggling in some way. So I was like, okay, that sounds curious, so I'd read it. And it's a woman called Mary. Her mother dies at the start of the book, so she sells up all the remains of the property and things, moves down with her aunt Patience. Her aunt Patience is married to a very dubious individual, let's say, and he's indeed involved in some shady goings on at Jamaica Inn, because that's where they live. Jamaica Inn isn't exactly the normal, open, welcoming inn. However, they don't have passing traffic, stagecoaches and things stopping there. They seem to have just odd people coming in the night for unsurprisingly suspicious reasons. And I was actually really surprised by this. I don't normally read classics. I mean, this is a classic historical fiction, and I was a bit wary of it, frankly, but I'm actually really glad I read it, because I actually really did enjoy this. The atmosphere of the book is the most significant thing about this book, because it's just really gloomy at parts. I mean, the whole moors around Jamaica Inn, and how Mary just wanders off into the moors and then comes back, and it's just dark, gloomy, but there's elements of hope there though, and the characters are also equally well developed, and there are some interesting and curious characters, and a few twists as well. I thought this would be more predictable than it was, actually, to be honest, a lot more predictable, and it actually made me really surprised at several points, and I just really enjoyed it. And so thank you to Jenny for encouraging me to read this, because this was really fun. Actually, I recommend this if you like classics and historical fiction. Then this will be an interesting one. And don't just count it out just because you read, if for instance you like men, you read almost entirely science fiction as a rule. This is something different and good, basically. The third book is Absolution Gap by Alastair Reynolds. This is the third book in the Revelation Space trilogy, which I have just there, where my hand is there, which starts with Revelation Space, then there is Redemption Arc, then there is this one. This one is the fattest of the three. I can't really say too much about the plot, particularly because obviously it's the third in the trilogy, so I'd give away plot points. But suffice to say, I liked it, but I didn't love it. The first book was the best, then the second, then this. This is still interesting, and it still goes in an interesting way, and it still has the same feeling, but the plot seems a bit silly at points, and I didn't overly like it in some ways. It just felt... the plot felt fractured, frankly, at a lot of places, and I wasn't keen on it. But, you know, which is sad because it's the third in the trilogy, so it still ended well, though. It really did. And it's a science fiction space opera, by the way, I forgot to say that. So it's worth reading, especially if you've read the first one. You'll want to read the second and the third. But it's not as fantastic, I don't think, as the first, frankly. The fourth book was Frenchmans Creek, also by Daphne de Maurier. After reading Jamaica I thought that I would read try and experiment with something else by de Maurier. And by the way, this is also Mum's copy. This is even thinner than Jamaica was, and I knew very little about this yet again, actually less than Jamaica. My mum thought that it had something to do with smuggling. She hasn't read it for more than 25 years, so she frankly can't remember. And it's not to do with smuggling, frankly. The plot is a woman called Lady Donna St. Column, who is a high society woman. She married into it via her rich husband. She has 2 children. She lives in London, you know, in sort of big high society with parties and that sort of thing. And basically, she's really bored. She's 29 years old. She doesn't like what she's doing there. She just bores her. So she one day decides on her own, without her children or husband, to go to their country estate called Navron, and just have a bit of a break there and just see if that's more interesting to her than London society and all that goes along with it. While she's there, she bumps into, unsurprisingly, the Frenchman of the title. There is a creek by their country house, and obviously the Frenchman is a pirate, essentially, and he has his ship in this creek, hidden there, away from all the locals, and every now and again he goes out and he'll raid nearby ships of supplies and then obviously sell them on and make his money. She basically meets him and has a bit of a thing for him, and it just goes from there. And that's what I'm going to say. It's not that complicated, frankly, the plot isn't overall. I mean, it's only a short book. I liked it as such. I mean, the writing was really good, actually. It's just as good as Jamaica, but the thing that put this book down heavily, in my opinion, was the main character, Donna. She is extremely annoying to read about. You kind of hate her character, frankly. She's annoying, she's extremely selfish, she's frankly really stupid at a lot of times. And the fact that she's quite happy to sort of run away, ideally, and just leave her family and 2 young children, she doesn't seem to care in the slightest about them, is not nice, because, you know, you don't just run away like an idiot just because you happen to be a bit bored. That's not something that I personally agree with, and she's not a nice character, and she sort of really does damage the book. I know that's the idea of the book, is that she's not meant to be a nice person, but it doesn't sit well with me personally. It is a good book though, and I'm glad I read it. I'm not going to read Rebecca by Daphne de Maurier, which I was going to borrow off my mum and read, and then frankly after this one turned out to be different from what I expected, I changed my mind basically. And finally, the very short book that I mentioned at the start is an e-book, and I'm going to have to read it out because obviously it's an e-book. It is Nikola Tesla, Imagination and the Man That Invented the 20th Century by Sean Patrick. This is a non-fiction book. It's a biography and a history of sorts of Nikola Tesla, and with some of the author's thoughts and sort of introspective thoughts on Tesla and what he made in his life and what he could have been if certain things hadn't have happened. You know, he was a brilliant inventor, but he didn't have the sense or the knowledge to realise that he needed a proper sort of use for his technology, for it to be developed, and indeed the money for it to be given to him so he could develop this technology. He had to trust people far more than he needed to or really should have done with. And I'm not going to go into it anyway. This was an interesting little book. It's very short, it's only like 50-60 pages. I already knew quite a bit about Tesla, weirdly enough. I don't know why, I just do. It's one of the people that I know about. So it wasn't as interesting as it could have been. It still has some interesting little bits of information in it, and it's kind of like a partial sort of self-help guide as well. It's trying to do, the author Sean Patrick is trying to say how to go about certain things. You can actually download this book for free from Amazon as well, which is what I did. So it doesn't cost you anything, obviously, to get. So it's a quick, easy read. So, you know, if it sounds of interest, you know, learn about Tesla and the inventions and the technology that he created and what he spawned since his death, then it might be worth a read, because it's fairly interesting overall. So with that said, that's everything I've read this month. 4 full-length novels and 1 very short story. I think that's what you class it as. I'm not sure. If you know what that last Nikola Tesla book is classed as, then let me know. Overall, a mixed bag this month. Sometimes I read much better books, frankly, and I choose my books a bit more carefully. This time I took a few risks, and one of them with Jamaica worked out. Frenchmans Creek didn't, and the third in the trilogy by Reynolds didn't work out that well either, sadly. But you know, I'm still happy I read everything. If you've read any of these or would like to, then please let me know and we can have a conversation. All my social media links can be found in the information box below as well, as there always are. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.